The name Dracula conjures shadows. It whispers of ancient castles perched on craggy cliffs, of bats flitting against a full moon, and of a creature of the night with a thirst for human blood. This is the Dracula of our nightmares, the immortal count born from the mind of Bram Stoker. But behind this gothic fantasy, behind the swirling cape and the hypnotic stare, lies a real man. A man whose history is, in its own way, far more terrifying than any vampire legend. He was not a count, but a prince, a voivode. His story is not one of supernatural evil, but of the brutal, bloody reality of 15th century Europe. He was a warlord, a defender of his faith, and a monster forged in the crucible of war and betrayal. This is the story of Vlad III, Prince of Wallachia. To understand the myth, we must first exhume the man. We must travel back in time, away from the flickering gaslights of Victorian London, and into the dark, dense forests of Eastern Europe. This was a land caught between empires, a battleground for Christianity and Islam. Here, survival was not guaranteed. It was earned through steel, cunning, and an absolute capacity for cruelty. The man who would become Dracula was a product of this unforgiving world. His tale is one of power, not of pathology. Vlad III was born in the winter of 1431, not in a towering Transylvanian castle, but in the Saxon town of Sigisawara. This was a world of constant simmering conflict. His father, Vlad II, was a nobleman and a military governor, soon to be the ruler, or voivode, of the neighboring principality of Wallachia. The elder Vlad was a man of ambition and consequence, inducted into a prestigious chivalric order created by the Holy Roman Emperor. This was the Order of the Dragon, a secretive society of monarchs and nobles sworn to defend Christianity and crusade against its enemies, most notably the encroaching Ottoman Turks. This membership would define his family's identity and set the stage for his son's bloody destiny. He and his younger brother Radu were not raised in the warmth of a secure court, but were instead pawns in a deadly game of international power. To secure his own wavering position and prove his loyalty, their father sent his two young sons to the Ottoman court of Sultan Murad II as political hostages. This one act would be the forge in which the future Impaler's character was hammered into its final hardened shape. Life as a hostage under the Ottomans was a masterclass in survival. For years, Vlad was immersed in the culture, politics, and military tactics of the very empire he would one day fight. He was no longer just a son of the dragon, he was ready to become a dragon himself. The name Dracula, now synonymous with the undead, began as a simple matter of lineage. It was a patronym, a way of identifying a son by his father. Since his father was known as Vlad Dracul, Vlad the Dragon, young Vlad was logically known as Dracula, which simply means son of the dragon. In the context of the 15th century and the Order of the Dragon, this was a noble and heroic title. It connected him to a holy cause, a crusade to protect the cross from the crescent. It was a name that should have signified him as a champion of Christendom, a bulwark against the Ottoman tide that threatened to engulf all of Europe. But names have a life of their own, and their meanings can twist and darken over time. The Romanian word drac already carried a dual meaning. While it signified the dragon of the knightly order, it was also the common word for devil. This ambiguity was a gift to Vlad's enemies. To them, he was not the son of the dragon, but the son of the devil. Beyond the name Dracula, Vlad earned another title, Tepes, or the Impaler. Thus, the man had two names that would echo through history, each with its own story. When Vlad Dracula finally seized the Wallachian throne for the second, more lasting time in 1456, he inherited a kingdom in chaos. The country was impoverished. Its trade was dominated by foreign merchants. Political stability was undermined by the constant scheming of the boyars. These were the same men who had betrayed and murdered his father and brother. Legend tells of an Easter feast to which he invited hundreds of the boyar families. After they had feasted, he asked them how many princes they had lived under. His soldiers surrounded them. The older nobles were allegedly impaled on the spot. The younger and healthier ones were marched 50 miles to the ruins of a fortress at Poenari. There they were forced into slave labor, rebuilding the castle. With the boyars brought to heel, Vlad turned his attention to the Saxon merchants of Transylvania. They had long enjoyed economic privileges that undermined Wallachia's own merchants. Vlad responded with a campaign of economic warfare and brutal raids. He burned their towns. He captured their merchants. And he subjected them to his signature punishment. These actions were not random acts of cruelty. They were calculated political moves. He was building a nation, and he was willing to use terror as a tool of statecraft, setting the stage for a legendary and terrifying confrontation. Vlad Dracula's reputation for cruelty wasn't built on rumor alone. It was earned through a systematic and theatrical use of terror. His chosen instrument, impalement, was a particularly grisly form of execution. The victim was forced onto a large sharpened stake, which was then raised upright. The stake was often oiled and not sharpened to a fine point, to make sure it didn't pierce vital organs immediately. The most infamous display of this method came in the summer of 1462. Sultan Mehmed II, enraged by Vlad's defiance and cross-Danube raids, led a massive army into Wallachia to crush the upstart prince once and for all. The Ottoman force vastly outnumbered Vlad's army. Unable to win in a conventional battle, Vlad resorted to guerrilla warfare, poisoning wells, burning villages, launching daring night raids on the Sultan's camp. But his ultimate masterpiece of psychological warfare was yet to come, waiting for the Sultan on the road to the capital city of Targovista. As Mehmed's army advanced, they came upon a scene of unimaginable horror. On the plains outside Targovista, Vlad had created a grotesque forest. Stretching for several kilometers was a field of stakes upon which the rotting corpses of some 20,000 captured Turks. The sight was so ghastly, so profoundly shocking, that even the battle-hardened Sultan, the man who had conquered the great city of Constantinople, was said to have turned back in horror and disgust. This forest of the impaled became the cornerstone of Vlad's legend. The tales of Vlad's cruelty spread like wildfire across Europe thanks to a new and powerful technology, the printing press. German Saxon merchants, victims of his raids and economic policies, produced sensational pamphlets illustrated with gruesome woodcuts. Pamphlets depicted Vlad as a bloodthirsty tyrant, a demon feasting among his dying victims. These Dracula stories were bestsellers, but that wasn't the only story. In Wallachia and among Balkan peoples fighting the Ottomans, oral histories remembered a different Vlad. Not a monster, but a fierce, just ruler. To many Romanians, he was a national hero. In the late 19th century, an Irish theater manager and author named Bram Stoker was researching a new horror novel. During research at the British Museum, a footnote mentioned a 15th century voivode named Dracula. The name's devilish undertones were perfect. Dracula's 1897 publication grew in influence over time, especially with cinema. Today, history and legend are blurred. The son of the dragon lives on, not in books, but in our darkest nightmares.